What's up? I finally had time. This video is going to be on ticker symbol SPIR, Spire Global, and I'm going to be reviewing their third quarter 2024 third quarter earnings call. I was going to review their balance sheet as well, but first of all, that's like 2-3 quarters ago, and also, I mean, it's all basically said inside the earnings call. If you want me to review that as well, that's just going to take a lot more time because I have to review their 10K and all that stuff. But there's some like it's pretty good, right? They went cash flow positive in Q3. That was like around August, they said, and hey, it's looking okay overall. Mixed feelings, right? Also, expect turbulence ahead. That's the TLDR, but into the TL. So here's the third quarter third quarter call transcript. So I just highlighted a few things that I thought were important or that I thought were noteworthy. I'm just gonna go through all of the main points that I had, right? It's not gonna be any particular order, and it might be slightly random, but I'll kind of do a summary at the very end to kind of explain what I think, how I think the stock's gonna move, etc., etc. So first thing is the restatement is expected to have some cost between one cost between 10 million and 15 million in direct and indirect costs, right? So, and majority of these costs will be recorded in Q4 and Q1, right? And I think somewhere later down in the transcript, I think Peter or Leo, they talk about how most of the costs will be incurred in Q4, and then some of the costs will be incurred in Q1. So that means that you will have this one-time cost of around, we'll say 15 million, right? And then we'll say that if it's a majority, then maybe like 12 to 13 million, I don't know, maybe 10 to 12 million dollars, that cost will be recorded in Q4. So you do expect lower earnings, lower earnings for Q4 and Q1 because you do have that one-time payment, right? So if I would not be buying calls in going into those earnings calls. So just keep that in mind, right? Next thing, I think that this was also really important. So at the point of time, right, for Spire Maritime, they're selling it at $241 million for about, I think they said it was 5.8 times, but nearly 6 times trailing 12-month revenue for only Spire Maritime alone. And they said that this was prevailing value of all of Spire at below 3 times trailing 12 months revenue, right? So trading at 3 times trailing 12 months revenue, you're trading at however much money you had in revenue in the past year, you're trading at only 3 times that. So trading at 3 times trailing 12 months revenue as a SaaS business is crazy. Absolutely crazy. I don't know, whatever. Anyways, so I actually listened to some of the earnings call, and then when I heard this part, they said we're currently expected the transaction to close in the next 6 to 8 months or 8 weeks. I heard on the earnings call, I heard 68 weeks, and I almost lost my shit because I was like, 68 weeks? No, okay, so it's gonna close in the next 6 to 8 weeks, so sometime in April, and they said. So that's also a really good plus. So keep your eyes out on that. They said that somewhere down here I talk about how they talk about how like that there's a hell or high water clause inside their contract. So the management is very confident that they will close that deal. And talking about this 240, it happened again. Talking about this $240 million valuation, let's look at what Spire is valued at right now, at $959. Do you see this? What the I get it, right? There is uncertainty in the market. You don't know what's happening. And they have $100 million in debt, right? They may or may not close. But someone at one point was willing to buy one of their business segments for about this price, $7 million above this price. This means that, so including the $100 million of debt, that means that the rest of Spire Global is only worth $120 million So all of the rest of Spire, so Spire Maritime worth $241 million. Everything else is worth half of that. That's what the market is saying right now. Do you understand why? Okay, I'm just gonna finish this earnings call. Anyways, so next 6 to 8 weeks, that's sometime in April, I think. Yeah, this was like March 3rd. Yeah, so something like late April. Next thing, he talks about how all the demand for Spire Global, which I think this is actually pretty interesting, how there's a lot more weather conditions have been getting worse, right? You have global, what do I do? Stop that. You have global uncertainty regarding like war, conflict, all those things. And there's one thing I really wanted to note, just talking about, so here, growth in interest in commercial and government sectors, nations turning to space. Talk about how the space what's it called, economy? No, space economy is large and expanding, with projections indicating it could reach nearly $2 trillion by the middle of 2030. I mean, I never really care about these projections, so I'm just gonna ignore that, but I just wanted, if anyone cared about that, just look at that. I wanted to take a note at when I think some people were talking about how, like, what the incoming or what the current administration that was just voted in, what would happen with Spire Global and how things might change, right? I found this really interesting right here. So the United States government has shifted, in some instances, 60-70% or more of its total budget in terms of data acquisition to its private sector, providing those as a service rather than the government itself owning massive infrastructure, right? And I think this is really actually bullish for this is actually really bullish for Spire Global, because if you think about how many people they've just been firing government workers left, right, and center in order to maintain those services and in order to maintain security and like strength, right? In case anything happens, well, you have to hire other people to do those services, and Spire Global is one of those private sector businesses that the government will hire after they had to fire a bunch of people that were maybe working on those massive infrastructure projects. Instead of keeping all those in-house, they're gonna hand the torch off to someone else to deal with those things. And the other thing as well that was really I guess actually oddly bullish for Spire Global is actually the conflicts that Trump has been doing, is when he like threatens to, like, when he talks about how like he's not going to support NATO anymore, right? And all those things. Man, all of NATO only has 2 nuclear powers, right? They have France and they have UK, which is not even really a nuclear power, right? But they have France and they have UK. So so NATO is going to have to increase their spend on security, on their spend on defense. And I think that is where Spire Global's security, or the Spire Global security arm of their business is going to flourish, because first of all, Spire Global does have a strong foothold in Europe, right? I think a lot of the management being actually from Europe. I believe that Europe is going to start growing, like putting more and more money into their defense now that they can't really rely on America to be that big brother, right? And if you look at how the DAX has been doing, right? Look at the DAX. This is Germany's index. It's been 14% year to date. You want to compare that to the SPY? You want to compare that to SPY? Oof. It's down 3%. It's down 3% year to date. So, like, you can see Germany's economy is starting to get better, right? And Germany being the biggest economy in Europe, they're starting to get better, right? And basically, as Germany goes better, right, their neighbors, their friends, their allies are also going to do better, because those people they're going to want to buy more things, they're going to create more jobs, etc., etc. So when you have more money, and when you have this growing adversary, Russia, and this big conflict that might escalate even more, right, you're going to want to hire these SaaS businesses in order to help maintain your security and help keep conflict at bay. Now, let's go back up. I guess another thing that I probably should have mentioned beforehand is, if you don't know why Spire Global has delayed their balance sheet and their earnings, they changed how they show their revenue to now starting when their customer starts receiving the data. Right here, right? All research and development costs associated with R&D service contracts have been moved from operating cost line to cost of revenues. And it does not change this does not impact operating income, EBITDA, or net income. So basically, they're just changing how things look, right? And I'm pretty sure this has to do with down here, right? In the past, we were recognizing these revenues on these milestones. There were some arguments on, and then now they're just deferring that revenue recognition to data provision. And I believe that this had to do with that North Star contract a while back. There was some lawsuit. I mentioned this in a previous video as well, how they were given kind of faulty data or like bad data, and then Spire Global, there's some lawsuit, and then in my opinion, I felt that it was better to just kind of take one on the chin and just like, you're giving someone faulty data, so you can't expect to get paid, right? So then I think doing this is actually really good and will help maintain customer relations, because if you give bad data to a customer once and then you force them to pay for that bad data, that just ruins the entire relationship, and that person will no longer be your customer. But if you do this now and you recognize revenue like this, I think this is good for multiple reasons. First of all, I feel that if you recognize revenue like this and you get paid this way during data provisioning, then you might be able to attract more customers, actually, because potential customers will be less loss averse when they're actually looking at what service to use. If they only have to pay once they can tell that the data they receive is good, then they'll be more willing to give you a chance, right? It's kind of like a trial period. But additionally, this is also reflects well on their current customers as well, because if their current customers like their data, right, that's the only reason why they're continuing to use Spire Global services, right? They wouldn't keep using their services if they thought their data was trash and they were just locked into a contract. So this, I think, is really speaks well of the company and how useful their data is. Sorry, I'm flipping up and down. If you're a numbers person, right, you can look at this stuff. Third quarter GAAP revenue, 28.6 million, 29% year-over-year growth, 108 million total full year 2024, 108 to 110 million. Remember, that might be a high number, but there's also that around like 10 to 12 million one-time cost for the restatement of the balance sheet and stuff like that. Free cash flow positive, that's great. But also, as I said again, as we look to fourth quarter, cost of impact from restatement process, we do not expect fourth quarter to show positive free cash flow. Okay, as I said before, it's going to be a turbulent few quarters, few months, right? Like, this might be bad for the stock. Again, I would not buy calls, right? I would not buy calls. That's just my opinion. I would not buy calls. And again, this also, because they were expecting to have that cash on hand after the Spire Maritime deal closed, they got rug pulled. They're going to need to seek debt financing, right? Again, do not buy calls. Again, I'm just telling myself not to buy calls at this point. Like, this will be a turbulent few quarters. If you trust management and you believe in the business and you believe in Spire Global, then I believe it might be a good buying opportunity. But this is, again, a lot of uncertainty, right? You have to sit through going back down to negative cash flow, right? You have to sit through waiting for that deal to close. You have to sit through this debt financing, right? There's going to be a lot of uncertainty. There's going to be a lot of I'll be frank, just not good things for Spire Global or for the stock. So you have been warned. Anyways, keep going. Let's see. Talk about more lawsuits and how the lawsuit took time away from them being able to find contracts and sign contracts, right? So I'll give them that. That does make sense. Very noisy. Very noisy, okay? In coming quarters, very noisy. I already talked about that. I already talked about this. Higher hell water provision. talking about how they're really confident that the Spire Maritime deal will close, and they also hired some person during the who forced Elon Musk to buy Twitter. So that hey, that's pretty cool. North Star contract, talked about that. Oh, this is another reason why not to be too excited for Q4 earnings. It's because this restatement and also the transaction with Spire Maritime, the contract that was supposed to close in Q4 with Canada, with the wildfire and Aurora Tech, actually got closed in Q1, right? So they didn't sign until Q1 because, again, of all this restatement and all this stuff. So this is cool too, right? It tells you that they had to compete again, right? They had to compete to win that contract, and because Spire's payload was pretty good and there was good performance, then that's why they won that contract. I wrote that. This is also kind of positive, where this analyst, Chris Quilty, asked if it's a blip or if it's a baseline, and then Leo says it's for sure a blip, right? I mean, that's only if you trust management's word. If it's a blip, that means it goes down and goes back up again, right? It's not a baseline, it's not going back down and restarting, right? So that's also pretty good. But yeah, that's most of, sorry, this was kind of a random video, pretty fast. I've been pretty busy recently, but that's pretty much what I got from the earnings call. Okay, so TLDR, this was a mixed earnings call, right? There were a lot of good things and there were a lot of bad things, right? You have a lot more uncertainty, right, with the debt financing, with waiting for the Spire Maritime deal to close, with not being able to get as many contracts because they were focusing more on the restatement rather than actually focusing on getting more and signing more contracts. Another thing I forgot to note is that all of this is for Q4 of 2024 and Q1 of 2025, and we're almost done with Q1 of 2025 in about 3 weeks. So this is actually another reason to be more bullish, because all of the stuff, all of the turbulence is basically behind us now, and Spire Global can now, after closing the deal, after finally finishing the restatement of their balance sheet of their earnings, then they can finally start and ramp up contract creation and contract signing and all that stuff, which is definitely something to be positive about. But you also have a lot of more clarity, right? Like you actually get more information, and also you do have a positive environment for Spire to grow. Additionally, I keep bringing it back to here, $250 million market cap. Spire Maritime alone is closing at someone was willing to pay $241 million at one point for one of their businesses. At this point, I'm not even buying Spire as a growth play anymore. This is a value play at this point. And like, maybe I'm gonna get screwed, maybe, right? I might get screwed, right? This is not financial advice. This is never financial advice, but maybe I might get screwed. But I just think that people are completely like throwing Spire out with the bathwater just because the deal was trying to be canceled. Think the fact that someone was willing to pay that much for it. They were $241 million would have made Spire Global, all of Spire Global, be trading at around I think they said 3 times trailing 12 months revenue. For a SaaS business, this isn't some like you sell something for $1 and you get back 5 cents. You sell something for $1, you get back like 30-40 cents, and then you can use the thing that someone helped you pay for all your other businesses, right? Like you don't it's not hello, it's a SaaS business, a high margin business, right? And I just think that this is the complete like price collapse is absolutely crazy. But I do understand that there are fears that maybe the deal might close. Maybe Spire Global will have to, I don't know what they'll have to do, but then they'll have to deal with $100 million of debt somehow, right? So there are fears, and there will be, the next 2 quarters will be kind of iffy, right? But my opinion is, I mean, I've been sitting through it since it was at $3, so why not sit through it for a little bit longer? That's my opinion. Through whatever happens, entertainment is guaranteed, but nothing else. So those are my thoughts on the Spire earnings call. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something. All right, peace. You probably didn't learn anything though. I don't know.